Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Grumman Pilot's YouTube channel. And today is Hangar Flying, episode 20, October 1st, 2021. And we're going to update you on the Project Tiger, and then we're going to have some bunch of bag of tricks for you. But let's sit back now and listen to the new engine run on the test stand that's going back in the Project Tiger. So we would like to ask you please subscribe, hit the like button, and hit the notify to stay current with our content. So this last weekend we had the first run of the Project Tiger engine. So it did 8 minutes on the test stand, and it was basically a leak check run. So we ran it outside and we found no leaks on it. And so now the engine's going to get some more run time on the test stand. And then it'll get the sign-offs, and then we'll be picking it up, and Shop Monkey will be bringing it over to T11, and we'll be hanging it on the Project Tiger with all the new motor mounts and everything that we have. As a part of getting ready for that to come back, we did a ship's power. We showed you the video on the firewall and the battery box work, but we tested all the new relays and the electric fuel pump and the avionics. So now the airplane is sitting there waiting for the engine to come back, and that'll be a happy day for us. And then the final thing that we were preparing for is we got all the scat tubing ready for the engine compartment, so that when the engine comes back, we go to put it all back together with the new baffles, we have all the pieces that we needed. Well, the Project Tiger engine is back, and so our next project on that, before we hang it on the airplane, is to take the brand new Lycoming starter that's on it, that's a lightweight, and put the new 149 NLR from Skytech on it. We just think it's a better starter, and that'll give us a good, only used 3 times spare starter that's brand new that we can put down in Yankee Aviation shop, so that somebody comes in and has a starter problem, we have a starter that might be able to use for them. So anyway, that's the next step on the project engine, to change out the starter and then get it back on the firewall. Now, I know a lot of frugal Grumman drivers say that, we have to change our hoses too often, and a 10-year hose doesn't really need to be changed every 10 years. Well, here's a hose that a guy, now this airplane, it's not a Grumman, but it's got a Continental engine, and he took it out of annual and brought it to Jimmy. It's only got 3 hours since annual, and he was smelling fuel. He goes back to the shop and he goes, I'm smelling fuel. He goes, well, there's not a problem, blah, blah, blah. And you don't want to bring the FAA into it, because if they do, they'll say, why were you operating an aircraft with a problem? Won't come back on me, the shop. So he brought it to Jimmy. Jimmy took it off the airplane and he pressure tested it, and look at all the bubbles that were in that fuel pressure hose. So there's a reason why there's a date on your hoses, folks. Please obey it. Now here's some more news from Hogan Field, that Bay Charlie of T11, and you might remember that Bay Alpha right there is Yankee Aviation's new up-and-coming workshop. But Bay Charlie, a shop that we had bought for some extra storage, of course it's got a bathroom, epoxy floor, radiant floor, all the nice accoutrements. But anyway, it's going to be bought by, it's being rented to us right now. I'm sorry, we're going to have a renter. It's going to be Triple V Engine Aircraft Services, and they're going to be renting from us with a agreement to buy it down the road. But the nice thing for us is that we're going to have an engine shop 50 feet from our other bay. So that's going to, you come into Yankee Aviation for an annual and you have a cylinder problem or some engine work, it's nice to know there's going to be an engine shop right down the road. So we're looking forward to that. Just to give you a heads up, but a new engine shop on Hogan Field. And then the only other thing that we have to do with Bay Charlie is that we're going to go ahead and get the radiant floor up and running. The PEX tubing is in the concrete slab, and we know where all the loops are, but it's a matter now of hooking up the manifold and the heater and everything else to get it up and running. And we want to do that before the cold of winter sets in, because that's a big chunk of concrete, probably about 300,000 pounds that we want to have warm, so that we don't have to heat it all up at one time like we did with Bay Alpha. So that's where we're going on with the radiant floor of Bay Charlie. And I know we've told you that the GPA is working on having some new red rudder caps made. And by the way, this is all with tooling that was the original AGAC tooling back in the day. So we've got the original tooling for all the plastic that goes in our airplane. Now this is for the Cheetahs and the Tigers, a few pieces for the Traveler, but nothing for the two-place airplanes. But it's your sump covers, your brake covers, and these are all the original pieces. And the company that's going to be making these is going to be making them under the same authority for us that David Fletcher is using down at Fletch Air. And these pieces are going to be underproduced, and they're going to be made out of the proper material. It's going to be thinner, and there's going to be a minimum of trimming you're going to need to do to it to fit it to the airplane. So the labor savings, considering that we spend about 8 hours for a window molding on the canopy window. You have two of them now, remember, but for one of those, you're spending 8 hours. Imagine you could reach down and grab a piece of plastic and just install it in the airplane after painting it. No trimming or filing needed. The labor savings of that is tremendous. And so, yeah, these pieces might be a bit more expensive than LP Aero or what Fletch Air is offering, but it's going to be the right material, the thinner material, and it's going to be already fit and trimmed for the airplane. So that's what your Grumman Pilots Association or your Grumman Pilots is doing for you in the background. We don't make a lot of noise about it. It's not a great big perk of membership, but it's something that we're doing to help preserve the fleet. So we hope you're finding all this useful and informative, but that brings you up to date on what we're doing with the red rudder caps and all the plastic pieces. So stay tuned. And we did a video this last week on our two iMacs, our 2009, which has been our video workhorse since 2009, and then our new machine, our 2019 iMac 27 that we have now, and it's been all tricked out with the 1 terabyte SSD hard drive, as well as 128 gig of memory, but it's about 218 times faster than our other machine for color correction, audio work, and writing it out to disk and doing all the color correction and stuff. So it's a much nicer machine, so stay tuned. Now here's a teaser for some video that's coming down the pipeline. John Meister and I, back in August of 1999, we flew from basically Dayton, Ohio, all the way out to Kodiak Island. It took us 24 hours and so much gas. And then we came back basically the same way, except we had gone up to Anchorage to drop off some people. But anyway, it was a nice flight, and of that we got to see a lot of fun stuff. You know, like John said, we got to see and do stuff that Ruth would have never allowed him to do when they went up to Alaska in 95 like this. So we got to fly, and where you can see where we are, we're in the middle of nowhere. You know, we were up at 11,000 feet flying around, and we looked and we said, you know, if we run out of if something happens to the engine, where are we going to go? We're going to land in the trees. So we decided to fly lower just to give us something to do, because we were still going to land in the trees. But we saw rivers and marshes. Here in Cordova, we got to actually land on the road and taxi off to the side with the other aircraft so we could go into the processing plant to pick up some smoked salmon and have it all freeze-dried and shipped home to us in Ohio. And as a matter of fact, we actually got home the same day that the express shipping went. But it's little things you don't get to see in the normal states is taxiing on a road and parking on the side. And then in a couple of minutes, John's going to taxi it up and reposition back to the other end of the, quote, runway as we go into town and take care. We don't want to take up any chance of somebody inadvertently hitting the aircraft and doing some damage in this remote location. But you get to see a lot of things, and you get to do a lot of things you never would be able to do here in this States. And I would say that when you fly up in Alaska, be sure to put prop guard on your propeller, because you're going to be picking up rocks. A lot of the strips are really just some sort of packed gravel, and you will get chips in your propeller. And the prop guard did save our propeller, and we had to change it on the flight home. Before the flight home, we brought some spares with us. So again, you don't normally get to see an airplane taxiing down a highway, but this is Alaska, and planes have just as much right on the roads as cars do. Just give them some space. And then you'll get to fly in the mountains as you're going cross country, and you get to see some wonderful granite and basalt peaks, beautiful snow. Here's the Malapinas Glacier near the coast, and it is just desolation. It's like the bad side of the dark side of the moon. I mean, it's just, you wouldn't want to land there because you'd have to walk out. And you get to see a lot of glacial ice in the rivers and the lakes moving out to go out to sea. So that's something you don't normally see around here. And again, this is in summer. summer. And then here's a glacier, and you can see how it flows and curves and goes downhill as it's working way down. I don't know what the movement on a glacier is, but the ferries in Alaska are all named after a glacier. There's that many of them. And then here you can see all the cracks in a glacier. So you'd have to be very careful about picking a spot to do a touch and go. Now, John and I were in one area where we were going between two locales of fuel, and the wind changed, and we had to land on the beach for a while to let the wind change before we could take off and finally make our destination. And then when we finally got to Kodiak Island, we unloaded the Tiger of all the stuff we had packed it, jumped into the seaplane. But before we did that, we had to go take some tours, and we went to a sporting goods store to pick up some supplies and take a picture with the bear. And then here I am with the bear too. I made John take one. So we picked up our supplies. We went to the grocery store, and we got like ground beef, vegetables. We went to Kentucky Fried Chicken and bought a bunch of stuff, because when you fly to the fishing camp, you get mail once a week. And that's about it. And you grow your own vegetables. So here we are looking out over the bay right in front of the fishing camp and the beach. So it's a fun time. Now, while John and I were flying, and to kill our time, we were doing fuel stops and stuff, John drew pictures in my journal, and we made up games like bowling for eagles and how to do it and how to recognize them and what the points and all were. So we made up games to amuse ourselves as we flew across Canada and Alaska, listening to music and navigating our way there with our GPSs and our maps. And, again, it's a fun time to have, and I hope everybody gets to have one like that sometime in their life. But that's what we did, and we kept records to kill our time. We also kept records of our fuel. We kept records of what birds we saw. John and I both studied ornithology in college, and so we kept track of all the birds that we saw along the way by species. Now, here's our fuel on the way there. 272 gallons, 233.9 on the way back, and we came back 3 hours quicker than we did, because on the way up we were sightseeing. I mean, we'd go left to look over here, and we'd go right to look over there. And as part of all that flight, John and I were planning it. When I got back, I was going to leave my corporate job, and I was going to come to work with John, and we were going to start maintenance and avionics in a shop together. And you can imagine my disappointment after really having decided I've got a new direction for my life, and now it's changed when John passed away. So here we are at the end of the year, and we had a big, 1999 to 2000 into the millennial party, and everybody was handling with the cope of losing John in their own way. But anyway, that series of videos is coming, and I hope you enjoy looking at the scenery you get to fly up in Alaska. And then another comment we got on the YouTube channel was someone would like to see a series of my weekly progress of what I'm doing learning to use the exoskeleton. It's a nice idea, but let me tell you, it's kind of boring if you want to see an hour of video of me going, take one step, stop, take one step, stop, turn to the left, turn to the right. Really pretty boring, so we won't going to be bothering you with that at all. But anyway, here's what we're doing. We're walking on AstroTurf right here, and we're having a pretty good time with it. And we're in the final stages of our advanced training on our exoskeleton to bring it home. But I don't think a series would be in the books for right now. Now, on another note, I'd like to say that this Tiger 28575 is in the shop right now for an annual, and it's officially the last Grumman I worked on before I had my accident years ago, which caused me to be learning about an exoskeleton. So it's nice to have Nate and his partner with the airplane back. So good to see it again. And after my accident, I'd like to thank Jimmy Candeletti, who came to my shop and got all the airplanes out of my shop and back to their owners for the owners. And here on Monday, the 27th, Mark Matthews took a ride in the Ford Tri-Motor out on the West Coast up in Oregon. Nice, pretty red and white one. So I'm sure he had some fun in it. And then in just a second, we're going to have some video that Kelly shot on her cell phone of a high-speed flyby of the Tri-Motor at about 40 miles an hour. And it's getting to be that fall time of the year, and we start thinking about cooler air and flying in it. And don't forget your air vents. We before we ship any set of air vents out for folks, we QA them. We check to make sure that all the louvers work, that they work in the right order, and that's just part of our QA process before they go and get carefully packaged in the box and get mailed to you. So think about new air louvers if you don't have them. The new ones are very nice, and with that louver on the back, it helps prevent the vent from wanting to cock over in the airstream. And you know how many of us had pencils in ours for years to hold them open. So anyway, air vents, put them on your list. And I got this in the mail today, and look at this. 40 years ago today, that is a Grumman AA1B 1632 Romeo. And does anybody recognize Rich Harrison right there with a big smile on his face? He's owned 32 Romeo, which is now the Bumblebee, bright yellow, but 40 years. Imagine owning an aircraft for 40 years. Boggles my mind. And then for my afternoon treat, I got this in the mail today. So here somebody pulled out their bright little pretty red Yankee on the ramp, cleaned their hangar, washed and waxed the airplane. It looks good. The hangar looks clean, and now they're sitting in the shade on this gorgeous day, enjoying a good cigar before they get back to the rest of their day. Tends to make me a little jealous. But anyway, that's part of my afternoon.
I'm looking for Roscoe. My dad and I are on the hunt for either a tiger or a cheetah, and I heard that you might have the inside scoop on planes that might not be listed on Trade a Plane and Controller and those other sorts of things. If you wouldn't mind giving me a call back when you have a chance, I'd really appreciate it.
And believe it or not, I get 2 or 3 phone calls like that every week. Ladies and gentlemen, I do not have any special list of Grummans and cheetahs and tigers that are on the market that nobody else knows about. If I did know about them, I'd be buying them up, refurbishing them, and selling them. So don't be thinking I have a special list. The only one I know about is the Project Tiger, and there's a weekly series on that already. So we hope you found all this useful and informative. Thanks for watching, and have a great day flying your Grumman. You know, forget buying expensive toys for your kittens and cats. We find that just taking the aircraft spruce box and the paper on the tile floor is more than enough amusement for them for hours.